every single day. Grayson Grundhoefer, 365 Sports and SicEm365.com joins us. Paul Craig and David Smoak. Grayson, from the time you saw the early release of the 3 different colors, etc., whatever, uniforms, compared to what you felt like yesterday when you saw the new anthracite, how much of a difference between 1 and 10 would have been in your excitement meter?
Oh, I mean, it was night and day difference. I think, when everyone, I think, initially saw the new updates to the jerseys, I think some of it was more of it looks good, but also I think there was an anticipation for more. You know what I mean? And so I think that, seeing that initial update and being able to sit there and go, wow, okay, these look a lot better than they did, but it's still not to the level that, I think a lot of us were anticipating. But then also, I guess I kind of knew that there was going to be another one. And obviously during the release, there was the hint that there was going to be another jersey. I was pretty surprised that they ended up doing it during the same week. I thought they might wait to do it, before a game day of some kind. But they were awesome. And they were kind of everything that I had basically heard wrapped into one single jersey. It very much reminded me of the, back in the day, the 2018 jerseys, 2013, 2014, 2015, the black ones. It's very similar, but also with a different touch to it with the, the gold letters, I think, look awesome. Baylor across the chest looks great as well. The bear claws on the shoulder pads look awesome. So, yeah, I mean, the difference was drastic because I think everyone saw the anthracite jersey and we're kind of sitting there going, well, I wish they could have done this with all the jerseys. Now, obviously, Baylor could not do that. You got to adhere to some limits, and Nike can only do so much with updates to jerseys. But the fact that they got an alternate that was so perfect, I think is very, very good for the program and something that I think the fan base truly is excited about. And I think that's really important coming off of what was such a tough season last year, but what has been such a productive offseason.
So how does this register with recruits when it comes to uniform changes, particularly a cool alternate like they now have, which they have not had for quite some time now?
So I actually think some of the recruits were able to see the anthracite jersey in particular before it was released by Baylor. I believe that there was a little bit of that going on, not a lot, but the few guys that were on campus very, very recently, I think might have gotten to get a little bit of a preview of that. And I think the reception was really good and just kind of the whole cool factor, right? That's always a big deal. Not something that I think, at least in my eyes, it's not something that changes the recruitment. It's not something that, okay, now I'm definitely going to Baylor or anything like that. But I do think it's one of those things where you show a recruit that, and they're able to put it on and wear it and things like that. It is a cool moment for them. And so I think it's more of that, not necessarily a determining factor in the recruitment.
Grayson, do you have a favorite combination that you've seen? Or I guess they haven't shown combinations. I know Colt's been putting out some options there, but do you have a favorite set that is the plain, full-colored one? And what kind of combination, if any, that you've checked out would you like to see?
Right. So my favorite normal one is actually the green one. It definitely gives Packer vibes, but that's definitely my favorite one of the ones that they've already released. I think Colt's done a really good job of mix and matching some of the combos. I felt like when he put out the anthracite one with the gold helmet, that one was pretty cool. I think you could do it with green as well, and I think it would look good. So in general, I think they have a lot of mix and matching to do. He also changed some of the face masks on some of them as well. So I'm curious if that becomes, more of the norm, because they really haven't done that in recent years. So yeah, I'd say, the green full set, great. The anthracite full set, awesome. And then being able to mix and match, with that gold helmet potentially, I think looks really, really good. And I think in general, they did a really nice job with the updates. They just, as you've mentioned multiple times, Craig, they just were so bland and so plain for this stretch since 2019. Even just adding a little bit of things, a little bit of nuance, a little bit of detail to the jerseys, I think it does go a long way.
Well, I talked to a couple of people yesterday in Baylor Athletics, and I wanted to know why the timeline of what they did. And I think they understood the first release earlier this week was something that really there was Nike. And what Nike wanted, I'm sure the schools obviously have some play in that. But I think they kind of expected a little bit of, I don't know if the word would be blowback, but maybe disappointment or And then 2 days later, they unveil this one. Do you like the way they did that, the way they planned that, or that's what they're saying?
I do love the way they did it. I mean, I mentioned to you, I really thought that they were going to wait on showing the anthracite until a game day. And honestly, I know back when they had all those jersey combos, they did a great job of rotating jerseys, but they also used the ones that people always felt like were the coolest a lot. Whether it was the black jerseys or the black jerseys with the chrome helmets, a lot of people love those, or the black matte helmets as well. I just think that there's an opportunity here now for Baylor to be able to mix and match that anthracite jersey with different helmets or different face masks. And I just think in general, kind of like I said, I think if all their jerseys looked like the anthracite one, just in the different colors, I think everyone would have been completely blown away. Now, they did not have the ability, I don't think, to do that. And so that goes to the strict timeline, like you mentioned. Just there were things that I don't think were feasible for them to be able to do during this latest update period, but for them to get an alternate just completely right. I think they absolutely hit a home run with the alternate is absolutely a big deal. And I think the way they did it was actually really nice, because I do think there is room for Baylor fans to be excited this offseason. And I think even with the transfer portal, there comes uncertainty with that. And so I think in general, this gives them just something concrete that they know is going to be solidified in the future for the next 5 years or so to get people excited about it. So, yeah, I like the way they did. I'm glad they did during the offseason.
Grayson, any thoughts as June visits start to get underway here? I mean, I guess that's the only thing on tap, right? I mean, basketball, there's always a chance, I guess, somebody could trickle in from the portal. Most of the spring sports, or I guess all the spring sports now are done. I guess you got track and field with some stuff, but is it pretty much all eyes on June visits now?
Right, it definitely is. I mean, so, landing Edward Griffin, I guess this was, a little less than a week ago, getting quarterback in the class. That was huge, obviously. That was a nice start, I think, towards the month of June. You're also going to have the guys in the 2024 class, the ones who have not enrolled already, early enrolled. You're going to have those guys enroll. I believe that's coming up this upcoming week, I think is when they're going to enroll on campus. So that's something to look forward to. But you're right. I mean, in general, all eyes are on June 7th, June 14th, and June 21st, where Baylor's going to have 3 straight weekends of official visits. They're also going to have 3 straight camp weekends as well, where they're going to try to send out more offers and evaluate prospects. But for the official visits, I mean, this is a huge time for the Baylor staff. And during this entire 2025 class, I've been pretty adamant that, Baylor, I think, is going to care about recruiting rankings in this class. And I think they're going to care about taking a rather large number of high school prospects compared to the last couple classes. And so for that reason, I think Baylor fans' expectations should be high. I know my expectations for how they're able to close this class are pretty high, just based on the guys that they're getting on campus, just based on how they've prioritized recruiting during this 2025 cycle. And, the current list that they have, I mean, there's probably 5 guys who are either ranked inside the top 100 recruits in the entire country, or in my eyes, there's a couple that I believe should be in that list of prospects who are right on the fringe of being in that number as well. So you have guys like that, of that, higher end talent, those high 4-star type guys. That's going to add some intrigue. But then they also have a lot of guys that they've been recruiting for a long time, and that they're trying to solidify in this class to give them a really good, baseline in the class, give them guys who really fit the program culturally, who they've been recruiting for a long time, and then also trying to shoot for the stars a little bit and try to land some of the guys that they've made priority targets who are, being recruited by just about every school in the country. And so trying to win some battles like that, I think, is going to be really important, at least winning a couple of them. And they're giving themselves an opportunity with that, just based on the recruiting list that they've put together so far.
Grayson, you said that they are going to care more, or I want to make sure that they're going to care much more about the rankings. Is that a PR type of thing, or has that been hurting them that perhaps they haven't had enough of the – and they've never been a top 10 class. I think Art Browse's last class was his best ever. I may be wrong, and we know what happened to that one. Is that just something that coaches go and find who they want, the fits, and if he's talented, even high level, great. But what does that actually mean?
So I guess just kind of my perception on it is just the way that they've really been, I think, talking about this class on social media, trying to build up momentum for this class, and just the guys they've been targeting. It's just a little different, I think, than the past couple of years. And I'm not going to say that what they've done in the past, doesn't work, because I think it does, but I do think that there was room for improvement when it came to NIL and when it came to the prospects you were going to target. And so I think that has shifted a little bit in the 2025 class. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to go away from the formula that, they believe is successful, but I have this feeling that there is more of a care about it. And I think with a bigger recruiting class comes more potential to have a highly ranked class as well. And so because you kind of view this class as being a little bit of a bigger one, probably getting above 20 prospects in it, you're going to give yourself a better opportunity to be ranked highly nationally. Not like that matters, more than anything, because I think that people get too caught up in that sometimes. But I do think when you're able to land some of the higher quality guys that you've been going after, some of the guys who, you're winning a major battle against, I do think that's a big deal. And so for them to be somewhere in that top 25 range, I think would be a big deal perception-wise, and also a big deal just for the talent on the roster. So, yeah, again, it's the way that I viewed this class from the very beginning. I think this is one that they've really been targeting, and that doesn't necessarily mean they won't take transfers, but I do think that it means they're really trying to put a strong emphasis on this class being, as good as it possibly can be.
Any further reaction to Edward Griffin committing? You mentioned the fact that they picked up a quarterback. It's been just about a week now at this point, but I guess we haven't talked about it much on this show. Just, I guess, in general, your overall thoughts, and does he, I don't know about swaying guys or anything, but is he a vocal type of kid that's going to help recruit this class? I mean, how do you kind of view Griffin as a prospect and also as the personality?
Right. So, I mean, it is interesting just because you mentioned the recruiting side. That's one of the first couple things that he actually mentioned to me, was just that he feels like Baylor's recruiting at a really high level, and that they're recruiting guys who are going to really make the program successful. And I think, a lot of the kids that you talk to, they view this program as trending in the right direction. And I know a lot of fans kind of aren't really on board with that, but I do think that based on what recruits have been able to see and hear and talk to the staff and learn from the team and the players on the team, I do think that recruits are responding really well to this idea that Baylor's going to turn it around this year. And he's the guy who's mentioned that as far as their recruiting goes and just the trajectory of the program. But, yeah, I think this one's a big deal because, if you go back to last year, if y'all remember, Baylor was kind of in a weird spot with recruiting where they kind of missed on some prospects, and then they had another wave of prospects they started recruiting and missed on all of those guys. And then eventually they ended up landing on Nate Bennett and offering him and really targeted him and focused on him. And then he committed. But there was a stretch in there where they were really struggling recruiting quarterbacks in that 2024 class. And so for them this year to lose Adam Schobel and have that big loss, but then turn around a month later and the first guy they offered, the first guy that they truly target and go after, they're able to get a commitment from him. I think that's a big deal. And, I mean, this guy was the district 6-6A MVP. He led Coppell to a 12-1 record. I mean, they were really successful on the field in large part because of him. Extremely accurate. And I think the biggest thing with him that really stands out to me is just this spring, he's taken another big step forward. So this was his first year being the starting quarterback at Coppell full time. He had a really, really good year, but he's followed it up with a really strong spring where he's been really good in 7-on-7, went to the Elite 11 regional and won the accuracy challenge with ease at that as well against some of the top quarterbacks in the country. And I think for that reason, it's really stood out. to the Baylor staff. So for them to get a guy that really they focused on, right after Adam Schobel, I think speaks volumes about the kind of prospect they view him as and the kind of prospect, that they think they're going to get and the culture fit as well.
You talk to these players who commit or are being recruited by Baylor a lot. And we used to, and you know this, Grayson, we would get players who made commitments, and it just got to the point where there were so many decommitments, and everywhere. All the programs deal with it. And then the high school, the transfer portal with college. My question about Griffin, do the quarterbacks who commit to Baylor understand the PTSD that still might exist because of Austin Novosad?
I really try to not ask, prospects too much about that. I know Nate Bennett, I feel like, was pretty open just about that. And I think that in large part is also because Sean Bell was still here at Baylor, that I think that probably changed some things, right? Because, Sean got a lot of, I think, blowback for their high school recruiting when a lot of it truly, there was nothing he could do about, the Zach Pyron situation. And then, of course, the Austin Novosad situation where, he's traveling to Oregon in the middle of the night for, a one-day official visit and then flipping. Like, there's just things that you can't really plan for. And ultimately, people can be upset about that, but would you rather have the opportunity to land a top 150 player in the country, a top 10 quarterback in the country, and have him committed all the way to the last day, and you have, the best shot possible to land the best possible quarterback? I think that's the better strategy. And if you just happen to miss on that, well, okay, here's the transfer portal, and you can go find a guy to make up for that loss, which Baylor has done in the past as well. So I think with Sean Bell leaving and kind of moving on, and Jake Spavital coming in, I think that's changed a little bit. And I don't think players are hearing quite as much about that, even though I know a lot of these guys knew Adam Schobel was committed to Baylor for a long time, because Baylor was pretty honest with every quarterback they were talking to and saying, we have our guy right now. And so while we like you as a prospect, we're going to have you visit and things like that. They weren't going to offer anyone until Schobel, made his decision. Ultimately, He made his decision rather early, and then Baylor moved on to their next guy. And so I think it's more like that now. I think with Sean Bell moving to Houston, I think things have probably calmed down on that front.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate the call and time. Grayson Grundhoefer. He is Sikkim365.com, 365 Sports Recruiting Analyst, co-host of the Bearcast, and also football analyst, too. When we come back.